Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Roaming Prepper channel. I'm your host, Pete, and I want to thank you all for joining me today. Today's video is going to be, what do the experts say if you're traveling overseas? So the document I have is from the State Department, their Bureau of Diplomatic Security. And largely what that is kind of an advisory board between corporations, the public sector, the private sector, and media, as well as the federal government. And what they do, they kind of trade notes. Sorry, my camera's falling over here. They kind of trade notes on how to get things done uh, and recommendations. So when people travel, you can go to the website at state.gov, and they actually do a pretty good job of summarizing what's going on in the various countries. It's one of the things the State Department actually is supposed to be doing that they do pretty well, in my opinion. And having gone overseas, there's actually a lot of resources aside from my company resources, State Department resources. So in any case, you guys, I don't know if you can download this. You can probably search around and find something close to it on their website. But essentially, it is off-road and remote travel safety. Now, what do the professionals say? This is what they do for a living, right? They're not a YouTube guy who kind of does it for giggles on the side. So this was as of this month, the 27th of January. Sometimes the road most travel is not the one you want or need to take to get where you are going. In instances where you need to undertake off-road or remote road travel, there are several aspects to take into account. And then it goes into a summary. I'm not going to read this whole thing because clearly it's actually really small print, several pages long. And that would just make all of us insane, specifically me. So instead, I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version of it. So for the travelers, and I've said this before, I say it all the time, plan your trips, plan your trips. It says, for the travelers, the route. Travelers should consider the following when planning an off-road route or any other trip. They said, make sure all the members of the group are familiar with the route, and the alternative route has been planned in case one becomes unfeasible. And they give examples of flooding, landslides, which are completely possible things. We've seen it. Fires, like in LA, could be a riot, could be, civil war breaks out, something like that. Remain cognizant of local weather conditions. Again, I've said, check your weather if you're going to make a trip, because you get in an airplane in Houston and you don't check, Boston, even if it's in the summer, you could wind up getting, a bunch of rain over there. But it works both ways. You could be coming from Boston where you just have a little snow on the ground. You get to Dallas and you have freezing rain on the ground and black ice everywhere, and you're going to get in a car wreck because you weren't really mentally or physically prepared for that. And your clothing is inappropriate, so understand where you're going. This is especially important you go overseas. To the best extent possible, undertake off-road and remote travel during daylight hours. This is a no-brainer. Even if you're not going off-road, you're driving in an urban area, you should be trying to make all your trips during the day. It's infinitely easier to navigate with whether or not you have GPS on your phone or on a Garmin or whatever, or someone reading a map. It's so much easier to navigate in a strange place during the daylight hours. At night, it adds a whole new level of complexity. I've done it a lot. I've spent 1 year, I drove 50,000 miles on my own car, not including the rentals, the company vehicles, the airplane miles, the whole 9 yards. It was a crazy year for me. And yeah, I learned that very quickly. So I also will extend my stay and either arrive a day early or leave a day later, so I'm not rushing to airports. I can actually take the time to kind of plan out my trip and not drive like a crazy person. Also, rules of the road may differ in remote areas and other countries compared to here. The most common thing the Americans will think of, Americans and Canadians, we go to the UK and the driving is flipped over, right? Differ in different countries. So understand where you drive, what the stop signs look like, what the road signs look like, because stop signs kind of look the same everywhere, but the highway road signs, the designations may be different. You want to understand what you're getting into when you do that. Also, avoid areas of known criminal activity, the bad parts of town. I would recommend if you're going overseas, check with State Department as to what areas to avoid if you're going, within the US, Canada, and Mexico, specifically US and Canada. You can kind of call the hotel and just ask them, hey, I know the hotel's here. What areas is the shopping good? What areas should I avoid? Or when you get to the hotel, talk to the concierge or the manager and ask them. They usually are pretty good about giving tips. Mark safe havens, hospitals, police stations. This is one I haven't I've mentioned, but I don't do a good enough job of mentioning. Know where airports, police stations, fire stations, hospitals, and your hotel is relative to all of those places. Even if you're just driving to visit a friend and something happens and you get separated or you get lost, you want to be able to go to certain resources. Now, keep in mind, that's a double-edged sword. If the riot is against the police and you go to the police station, you might be walking into a problem. One trip in Argentina, my corporate security guys were actually texting me on my phone saying, hey, we see you're within 2 miles of the Capitol, El Edificio Roja in Buenos Aires. And I'm like, it's the red building. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a couple of miles away. I'm actually by the hotel. And I kind of told them where I was. And they're like, okay, you probably just need to take your food and go to your hotel, because a riot broke out by the Capitol building with the workers and the cops, and they're all fighting. And where my hotel is was actually over a little river. And the police station and an army base were between me and the incident. But they're like, you may want to just go to the hotel, get off the street so you don't get caught in anything, because they're going after the cops right now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So understanding that, and that's the same even here in the US. Imagine being in Seattle or Denver in 2020 when the Antifa riots were breaking out, and the BLM riots, and they're burning down police stations, and the Nazis are punching the communists, and all these assholes are in the street. And there you are trying to figure out where the hell to go. You don't want to be on the street. A really good movie is with Owen Wilson and Lake Bell, called, and that's her name, Lake Bell. She's an actress. It's called, oh God, no, I just blanked out. No Escape. And it's about them going to a foreign country for work, and the Civil War breaks out. And they're stuck in the country. They don't speak the language. They don't know what they're doing. They were there like a day, and everything goes to shit. So good stuff to know. These are really good points. Let's see. Traveling with a guide or driver, ensure they are hired from a reputable company. Yes, because you don't want to get in the tour car and they take you out into the boonies and hold you hostage. So obviously a good idea there. Then they also talk about communication system, things to bring. Communications, satellite device, if you can afford one or find one that works, GPS devices, enhanced cell phones, or a sat phone. They also mention food, water, and sleeping gear if you're traveling off the beaten path to remote locations or small towns and villages. Or even, I mean, think about it. If I'm driving from Texas to North Carolina, say, or I'm going to Ohio, right? Because some of our friends up there are having their bug out weekend. That for me is a 20-hour drive. It takes me 7 just to get out of Texas. And then the rest is going through like 5 other states, which is kind of comical. But what if I get hit by a blizzard because I didn't check my weather? Like I said earlier, you want to have those amenities where you can at least find a parking spot somewhere safe and try to sleep in your vehicle. First aid kit is a no-brainer. Travel first aid kits. I've done multiple videos on things you can carry on that will get through TSA and won't get you in trouble, and things you want to check that you can have on the other side, but you can't carry them onto the plane. It also mentions emergency gear, and specifically roadside gear. Know where your jack is, your tire pump, or whatever. Emergency gear for if you're the one driving, other than, jumper cables and tire jacks and stuff. You may also want to have things like better first aid kits, tourniquets, emergency gear like flashlights, which you can carry on if you're on a plane. And then a communication plan if you're traveling with multiple people, or if you're traveling from A to B and people are waiting on you, let them know the route you're taking, how long it's going to take. So a lot of this I've already covered. I just thought it was cool that I'm not completely crazy, that, my own experience is pretty much what the State Department's recommending as well. And then they also mentioned for your vehicle, Uh, let me see. Oh, standard type. Make sure you're driving a vehicle that is suitable for the terrain. If you're going to go off road, like in Baja, New Mexico, down the Baja Peninsula in Mexico, you want to make sure the vehicle is suitable for that terrain. You want to make sure it's from a reputable place. You want to make sure it's in good condition. You don't want a janky. It's not like the movie The Mexican where Brad Pitt is offered like a high-end Ford truck and that he's like, I want the El Camino because he thinks that's a Mexican car. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a very stupid movie. It's meant to be a very dark comedy, but his character is very stupid. Shh, that's enough for all of you. They're all busted. Anyway, also test your vehicle, test the brakes before you drive away, and know the vehicle's estimated fuel range. So anyway, folks, that's a good summary. And avoid driving a motorcycle or scooter in strange cities, which is a no-brainer. Anyway, folks, that's it for this one, a short video. Remember, as we get into the better weather, it's the spring. Once the winter goes by, we're going to get into the spring, and then the summer, people are going to start traveling again. Start planning your trips now, even if you're not taking them till spring break in April or May, because you want to be able to enjoy the trip and not have something unexpected happen that really causes you a problem. And if something unexpected does happen, you've already planned for it, or you have options so you can pivot and go another direction, or change the whole schedule if you need to avoid any kind of problem. So anyway, that's it for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me once again. You guys be safe out there. Plan your trips. God bless, Godspeed, and I will see you all on my next video. Take care of yourselves.